Louise, hello.
Hello, Mike.
Hello. So, you guys, hopefully watching this, and us, we've just seen the premiere. This is the world premiere of There's No Such Thing as Vampires. So, an interesting film. We talked about this when we were sort of talking about what we were anticipating yesterday. This movie was described as a little bit Terminator, a little bit Mad Max, a little bit John Carpenter, but obviously with vampires. So, with all that in mind, what did you think of it, Louise? Did it kind of live up to those comparisons and those expectations?
You know, I think that's interesting. Those are some very, very big comparisons, especially something like Terminator.
Big I think it's
very, very big boots. Although I do think there was a really good sort of Mad Max feel to it. So it's these 20-somethings that meet in a very sort of strange way where one guy's running from something, you're not entirely sure what he's running from. Mm-hmm. He teams up with this girl and they end up in her car, sort of hurtling away from a big giant RV, which to me screams like Jeepers Creepers. And it does have that Mad Max chase element. You've got all that going on. So you have sort of high intensity. You're being chased by something horrible. He's topless and covered in blood, which is all very strange. And I think at the time I said to you, I wrote it down. I was like, this looks and feels like a film that I accidentally recorded in the middle of the night in 1996.
Which I said was possibly my favourite review I've ever heard. And it's so right. You're so right.
Yeah, it has this really schlocky feel to it from the get-go. It's got a really dreamy, sort of synthy, cool soundtrack. I feel like the director, and especially with use of the score, they really wanted to bring you this sense of atmosphere, this kind of lazy horror feel. And for all of its weaknesses, of which it does have, it does not, you will agree, it does not have a great budget. But I felt it had a great heart. I feel like 15-year-old me would have loved it. Like, I feel like it got me far enough to a point that I could then take it the rest of the way and enjoy it as a monster movie. Like, what did you think? Did you feel the same?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Like, I kind of agree with you. And I know we were sort of saying this throughout the film together. We were texting and we were, you know, like you said, I loved the mood of it and I loved what it was trying to do. And it didn't necessarily have the budget to pull off everything. And it does have that very cheap look about it, which can be distracting sometimes. But actually, like you say, I loved what it was trying to do. I thought it was, you know, it had a nice kind of nostalgic feel. Like you said, it reminded me of films that I loved from the sort of late 90s, like Jeepers Creepers, before I knew it was made by a horrible person, and Roadkill, and, you know, those types of movies, like being chased by a big trucker on the road. Love all that stuff. And then the more it went on and it kind of went through a few twists and turns and we were introduced to some new characters. There's a slight kind of meta element to it as well. Yeah. We start off in a cinema where somebody's watching Nosferatu, and then later on there are lots of references to old cinema and Halloween.
Not just references, Mike. At some point, someone stands in the middle of a room with a history of horror cinema book. Like, if you are not being clubbed around the head with "this is meta narrative,"
it's true.
Than a horror cinema book. It's glorious.
True. It almost stops what it's doing midway through and becomes an episode of this podcast where somebody's going, well, actually, the first Friday the 13th didn't have Jason Voorhees, and they sort of go into it in depth. It is, and
of course, Rob Zombie didn't make Halloween. It was a remake.
Yes.
But no, do you know what it reminded me of? It felt like, I love Buffy, and you love Buffy, and friends of the podcast love Buffy. It felt like a weird Buffy episode, simply because at one point the big bad is kind of talking and has light on him and looks a lot like when Giles was turned into a demon, like a Fioral demon, as far as I remember.
Yeah, 100%. It did have Buffy vibes, and vampire stuff's always fun, and it definitely did have a kind of, I wonder if this is going to be something we're going to see a lot throughout the festival, the kind of 90s nostalgia to it, I think, because I think the next film we're about to see, The Late Shift, or whatever it's called, the night shift, 12-hour shift, is set in 1999 on the brink of the Y2K bug. And I wonder if this is going to be a thing. You know, we've talked about this before, but maybe how 10 years ago there was that real kind of 80s nostalgia. Now we're in very much a 90s nostalgia place, aren't we?
I am here for 90s nostalgia. I really think I'd be really interested. Like, I wonder what the cutoff for that is, because I know a lot of people will have just watched There's No Such Thing as Vampires and potentially really not liked it at all. They might have just opted out at the start. And there was a point at the start where I thought, I don't know what I'm thinking of this. But I kind of fastened in and went, no, I'm here for this. I can be with this, especially the tone of it. The tone felt so knowing. Like, at one point there was like a bikini clad synth sequence that was just like, what's happening here? But it was it didn't feel cheap, it didn't feel smutty, it just did that 90s kind of thing of beautiful people, and I was up for that. Like, I was
that
very
90s
wild things.
That 90s thing of like every single character looks like a supermodel in some way, and like you say, the main guy has his shirt off through the first hour of the film, basically,
relentlessly.
Absolutely amazing. So it's fun, isn't it? And you know, it has that kind of, like you mentioned, a synthy score, and it has that kind of neon lit sort of look, which I quite enjoyed. So not like a not bad start to the festival so far.
Not bad at all. I genuinely think that the minute a horror movie starts with a synth soundtrack, I'm like, I'm in. Yep, you got me. Sure, here I am. What you gonna do? It's gonna take a lot to kick me out now.
It's true. They know how to get us, I think.
Such a weakness.
Yeah.
I like
amazing. So there you go. So the next film we've got to watch is 12 Hour Shift, and then we'll see a few films tomorrow, and at some point tomorrow we'll report back, I guess.
We will.
Good. Well, I hope you get a good night's sleep tonight, Louise.
Thanks, Mike.
Well rested for at least 4 films in a row tomorrow. So there you go.
We can do this. Sweet dreams.
We can do this. Night-night. Bye.
Night-night.
Looking for more horror content? Subscribe now for more videos like this one, and listen to the Evolution of Horror podcast. Head on over to evolutionofhorror.com.